I never believed in moments that could change everything until the night Adrian offered to check my heartbeat. We were sitting on my apartment floor at 2 in the morning, surrounded by textbooks and empty coffee cups, and I'd just mentioned feeling lightheaded from pulling another all-nighter. What happened next made my entire world shift on its axis. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because understanding how I fell in love with my study partner requires knowing who I was before that moment. My name is Owen, and I've always been the guy who had everything figured out. I graduated top of my class in undergrad, landed a spot in one of the most competitive graduate programs in the country, and maintained a carefully structured life that left no room for surprises. I dated occasionally, always women, always casually, never letting anyone get too close. I told myself I was focused on my career, that relationships were a distraction I couldn't afford. Looking back, I realize I was just afraid of letting anyone see the parts of me I didn't understand myself. Then Adrian transferred into my program 3 months ago, and suddenly my carefully ordered world started developing cracks. He sat down next to me in advanced statistics on his first day, this tall guy with dark hair that was always slightly too long, falling into his eyes when he leaned over his notes. He had this quiet confidence about him, like he knew exactly who he was and felt no need to prove it to anyone. When Professor Chen called on him that first day, his answer was so insightful that even she looked impressed, and I felt this strange flutter in my chest that I immediately dismissed as academic competition. That's what I told myself anyway. Academic competition. Professional respect. Intellectual admiration. I was so good at lying to myself back then. We started studying together after he approached me in the library one evening. I was drowning in regression analysis, and he slid into the chair across from me with 2 cups of coffee and a grin that made something warm bloom in my stomach. "You look like you could use this," he said, pushing 1 cup toward me. "And maybe a study partner who actually understands this stuff. I saw you in Chen's class. You're the only one who seems to get it." "I could say the same about you," I replied, accepting the coffee. Our fingers brushed during the exchange, and I felt electricity shoot up my arm. I pulled back quickly, wrapping both hands around the warm cup. That became our routine. 3 nights a week, sometimes 4, we'd meet at the library or one of our apartments to study. We worked well together, our minds moving in complementary ways. Where I was methodical and precise, he was intuitive and creative. We'd debate theories until midnight, challenge each other's assumptions, push each other to think deeper. But somewhere between the academic discussions and the late-night coffee runs, something shifted. I started noticing things that had nothing to do with statistics or research methodology, like the way he'd bite his lower lip when he was concentrating, leaving it slightly red and full, or how he'd run his hand through his hair when he was frustrated, making it stick up in adorable directions, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed at my terrible jokes, how his voice got softer and more thoughtful late at night, when we'd finished studying and started talking about real things, personal things. I noticed how my heart would speed up when my phone buzzed with a text from him, how I'd spend extra time choosing what to wear on study night, how I'd catch myself watching him when he wasn't looking, memorizing the line of his jaw, the curve of his mouth, the way his hands moved when he explained something he was passionate about. I told myself it was friendship, just really intense friendship. The kind of connection you feel when you meet someone who operates on your wavelength. Nothing more. Then came the night he brought dinner to my place, because I'd mentioned skipping lunch. He showed up with Thai food and that smile, and we ate sitting on my living room floor, because my kitchen table was buried under research papers. We talked about everything except school. He told me about growing up in Seattle, about his complicated relationship with his father, about the moment he knew he was gay, and how terrified and relieved he'd felt all at once. It was like finally understanding the language everyone else had been speaking all along, he said, meeting my eyes. Like everything suddenly made sense. I felt something crack open inside my chest. That must have been scary, I managed to say. Terrifying, he agreed. But also the most honest I'd ever been with myself. That's the thing about truth, Owen. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And living a lie becomes more painful than facing whatever you're afraid of. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying his words, feeling them resonate in places I'd kept carefully locked away. The way he'd looked at me when he talked about honesty. The weight of everything I'd been refusing to acknowledge. I started having dreams about him. Dreams where we were closer than study partners, where I could touch him the way I wanted to, where I could lean in and discover if his lips were as soft as they looked. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, my body aching, and a truth I could no longer deny pressing against my consciousness. I was attracted to Adrian, not just intellectually or platonically. I wanted him in ways that made my carefully constructed understanding of myself crumble into dust. I tried to create distance. I cancelled study sessions, claiming I was busy. I avoided him in class. I thought if I could just get some space, these feelings would fade and I could go back to my safe, predictable life. But Adrian didn't let me retreat. He showed up at my apartment one evening with concern written all over his face. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked when I opened the door. "You've been avoiding me for 2 weeks, Owen. If I crossed a line or made you uncomfortable, please just tell me." "You didn't do anything wrong," I said, unable to meet his eyes. "Then what's going on?" "I thought we were friends." Friends. The word felt like a knife between my ribs. "We are. I just needed some space to think." "Think about what?" I couldn't answer. I just stood there, feeling exposed and terrified and desperate for him to leave before I said something I couldn't take back. He stepped closer, and I could smell his cologne, something woody and warm that made me want to bury my face in his neck. "Owen, talk to me. Whatever it is, we can figure it out." "I can't," I whispered. "Why not?" "Because I don't know how to explain what I'm feeling without ruining everything." His expression softened. "Try me." But I couldn't. I was too afraid. So I made some excuse about stress and deadlines, and he left looking unconvinced and hurt. I spent the rest of the night hating myself for being such a coward. The following week was midterms, and I threw myself into studying with obsessive intensity. If I could just focus on school, on the concrete and knowable, I could avoid dealing with the chaos inside me. That's how I ended up pulling an all-nighter before our biggest exam, sitting on my apartment floor, surrounded by notes and textbooks, running on coffee and anxiety. I'd been studying for 16 hours straight when Adrian texted asking if I wanted company. I should have said no. Instead, I unlocked my door and told him to come over. He arrived at midnight with more coffee and sandwiches I was too wired to eat. We studied in comfortable silence for a while. The tension between us from our last conversation, lingering but not overwhelming. He was being careful with me. I could tell. Giving me space while still being present. Around 2 a.m, I stood up too quickly to grab another textbook and felt the room spin. I must have swayed because suddenly Adrian was there, his hand on my elbow, steadying me. "Whoa. You okay?" His face was close to mine, eyes dark with concern. "Yeah, just lightheaded. Too much coffee, not enough food." "When's the last time you ate something substantial?" I tried to remember. "Yesterday. Maybe." He guided me back down to the floor, keeping his hand on my arm. "Owen, you can't do this to yourself. You're going to make yourself sick." "I'm fine," I insisted, even though the room was still tilting slightly. "You're not fine. Your hands are shaking." He took one of my hands in his, and I felt that electric current again, stronger this time. "And your skin is cold." "Really, I'm okay. It'll pass." He didn't let go of my hand. Instead, he moved closer, his knee touching mine. "Your heart's probably racing from all the caffeine. That can make you feel dizzy." "Probably," I agreed, very aware of how close he was, how warm his hand felt wrapped around mine. "Want me to check?" he asked softly. "Check what?" "Your heartbeat. Make sure it's not too fast." I should have said no, should have pulled away, made a joke, changed the subject. Instead, I heard myself say, "How would you check it?" He held my gaze for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in his eyes, something that made my already racing heart kick into overdrive. "I could put my ear to your chest, listen to it directly. That's what they used to do before stethoscopes, you know. It's called immediate auscultation." The air between us felt charged, heavy with meaning. "Okay," I whispered. He moved slowly, giving me time to stop him. But I didn't. I couldn't. I'd been running from this for weeks, and I was so tired of running. Adrian shifted closer, his movements gentle and deliberate. He placed one hand on my shoulder, steadying himself, and then slowly leaned in until his ear rested against my chest, right over my heart. The moment his head touched my chest, everything else disappeared. The textbooks, the exam, the fear, all of it faded into background noise. All I could feel was the weight of him against me, the warmth of his breath through my thin t-shirt, the intimacy of having him this close. "Your heart's racing," he said quietly, his voice slightly muffled against my chest. "I know," I managed to say. "Is it the caffeine?" He didn't move, didn't lift his head. If anything, he pressed closer. "No," I admitted, the truth finally breaking free. "It's you." He went very still. For a moment that felt like an eternity. Neither of us moved. Then slowly, so slowly, he lifted his head and looked at me. We were inches apart, close enough that I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could count his eyelashes if I wanted to. "Owen," he breathed, and my name had never sounded like that before, like a question and an answer and a prayer all at once. "I've been trying so hard not to feel this," I confessed, the words tumbling out now that I'd started. "I've been lying to myself for weeks, telling myself it was just friendship or admiration or anything except what it actually is." "What is it?" he asked, his hand still on my shoulder, thumb brushing against my collarbone. "I think I'm falling for you," I said, and saying it out loud felt like jumping off a cliff and learning to fly at the same time. "Actually, I don't think. I know. I'm falling for you, Adrian. And it terrifies me because I've never felt this way about anyone, let alone another man. And I don't know what I'm doing or how to handle this. But I can't pretend anymore that you're just my study partner or my friend, when every time you're near me, all I can think about is how much I want to." He kissed me. Adrian closed the distance between us and pressed his lips to mine, soft and sure. And the world tilted again, but this time in the best possible way possible. His mouth was warm and gentle, moving against mine with a tenderness that made my chest ache. I kissed him back, my hand coming up to cup his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw, the reality of him finally matching the dreams I'd been having. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that since the day I sat down next to you in class," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" "Because you weren't ready. I could tell you were working through something, figuring yourself out." I didn't want to push you before you were ready. How did you know? I asked. That I might feel the same way. He smiled, that beautiful smile that had been undoing me for months. The way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. The way you find excuses to touch me. Just little things like brushing my hand when you pass me something. The way your voice changes when you say my name. And just now, when I offered to check your heartbeat, and you said yes, even though we both knew what I was really asking. What were you really asking? Permission, he said simply. To be close to you. To cross that line from friends to something more. To see if you felt even a fraction of what I feel when I'm with you. I kissed him again, pouring weeks of denied longing into it. This time it was deeper, more urgent. My hands tangling in his hair, while his arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer. We kissed until we were both dizzy, until my lips felt swollen and tender, until the fear that had been holding me back dissolved completely. When we finally broke apart, I was half in his lap, his arms still around me, both of us smiling like idiots. I can't believe I almost missed this, I said. I almost let fear win. But you didn't, Adrian reminded me, brushing a strand of hair off my forehead. You were brave. You told me the truth, even though it scared you. I'm still scared, I admitted. I don't know how to do this. I've never been with a man before. I've never felt this intensely about anyone. We'll figure it out together, he promised. There's no rule book, Owen. We just have to be honest with each other and take it one day at a time. We stayed up the rest of the night, but we didn't study. Instead, we talked about everything we'd been holding back. He told me about the first time he'd noticed me, how my focused intensity in class had drawn him in. I told him about all the little moments I'd been cataloguing, the details I'd noticed, the way my feelings had grown despite my best efforts to suppress them. As dawn broke through my windows, we were curled up together on my couch, my head on his shoulder, his fingers playing with my hair. I felt more at peace than I had in months, maybe years. Like I'd finally stopped fighting against myself and surrendered to something true. We should probably get some sleep before the exam, Adrian murmured, though neither of us moved. Probably, I agreed. Or we could stay exactly like this. He laughed softly, the sound rumbling through his chest where my ear was pressed. I like that option better. Adrian. Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me, for being patient while I figured myself out. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. You're worth waiting for, Owen. You've always been worth it. I lifted my head to look at him. This man who had somehow become my entire world in just a few months. I don't know what happens next. Coming out, telling people, navigating all of this. It feels overwhelming. Then we take it slow, he said, cupping my face in his hands. We don't have to tell anyone until you're ready. We don't have to label anything or make grand announcements. We just have to be honest with each other and figure out what feels right for us. What feels right to me is this, I said, gesturing between us. You and me, together. Everything else we can figure out as we go. I can work with that, he said, smiling before kissing me again. We did eventually sleep, tangled together on my couch for a few hours before the exam. We probably should have been more worried about it, given how little actual studying we'd done, but somehow I wasn't. Whatever happened with the test felt less important than what had happened between us. As it turned out, we both aced the exam. Apparently, months of studying together had prepared us better than one all-nighter ever could have. When we got our results back the following week, Adrian grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing it in celebration. It was a small gesture, hidden from view, But it meant everything. That's how we navigated those first few weeks. Small touches when no one was looking. Text messages that said more than they appeared to. Study sessions that turned into make-out sessions as soon as we were alone. Learning each other. Exploring this new dimension of our relationship. Falling deeper. Every day. I came out to my best friend from undergrad about a month later, during a phone call where I couldn't stop talking about Adrian. She listened to me gush about him for 20 minutes before interrupting. "Owen, are you dating this guy?" "Yeah," I said, and saying it out loud to someone else made it feel more real. "I am." "And you're happy?" "Incredibly happy." "Then I'm happy for you," she said simply. "Thanks for trusting me with this." It was easier than I'd expected, that first time telling someone. It gave me courage to tell other people, slowly expanding the circle of who knew. My parents were harder, requiring several long conversations and some adjustment time, but they came around eventually. What mattered most was that they saw how happy Adrian made me, how much lighter I seemed when I was with him. Adrian and I have been together for 8 months now, and I still get butterflies when he walks into a room. We still study together, though now our breaks involve considerably more kissing than they used to. We've learned each other's rhythms, our quirks and habits, the things that make each other laugh or feel loved. He still does this thing sometimes, late at night when we're lying in bed together, where he'll press his ear to my chest and listen to my heartbeat. It's become our thing, this gesture that started everything. "Still racing," he'll say with a smile. "Still you," I'll reply. Because it is still him. It's always him. The way he makes my heart race. The way he makes me feel seen and understood and cherished. The way he was patient enough to let me find my own way to this truth. Brave enough to take the first step. And loving enough to catch me when I finally let myself fall. I used to think I had everything figured out, that I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. But Adrian taught me that the best parts of life are the things we don't plan for, the moments that surprise us, the feelings we can't control. He taught me that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and choosing love anyway. That night when he offered to check my heartbeat, when he put his ear to my chest and heard the truth I couldn't yet speak, that was the moment everything changed. It was the moment I stopped running from myself and started running towards something infinitely better. Toward honesty, toward love, toward him. And I would do it all over again in a heartbeat.